Hello, everyone. I am so excited to be your moderator for today's panel titled 2020, the year the market changed. And is that an understatement, you guys, or what? I think we're all living in new and exciting and different times. And I was so excited to be asked to moderate this panel today. I know many of you very well and have had the privilege and the opportunity to speak at all of your markets and shop all of your markets and be there every time the doors were open, basically. So I'm really excited to hear from you all today. So today we have Karen Olson with IMC. They manage High Point, Atlanta, and Las Vegas markets. So Karen, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We have Katie Miner with ADAC, and I'm very jealous of Katie's blue lacquer bookshelves behind her. I think she looks better than any of us in neutral land. We have Ashley Grigg with High Point Market Authority. Hi, Ashley. And Cole Doherty with Dallas Market Center, who's just down the road from me in Dallas. So thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you, Denise.
That's as far as I'm going to go with introductions. We have a lot to cover today, but I would like for each of you to kind of go around the horn. Tell me about your market, whether it's going on now or it's planned, the dates for it. Kind of give me a plug for what you have happening in each of your markets. Karen, we'll start with you.
Okay, so I'm actually in Atlanta at the moment. So our Atlanta market kicked off officially today. So I'm running August 13th through the 18th. Our next session for Atlanta is coming up in January, January 12th through the 19th. Vegas kicks off on August 30th, runs through September 3rd. And then again in January in Vegas as well. And I'll let Ashley do the High Point dates.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Karen.
Ashley, why don't you go next?
Yeah, so High Point Market is coming up October 13th through the 21st.
And that's an extended market for you.
It is. It's 9 days instead of 5 days. And we did that to kind of spread the crowd out a little bit. So when you're registering, you're going to see the map of the United States kind of broken up into 2 regions. And then there's also 3 periods. So we're really working to make sure that people are registering and attending in different times so that we're spreading out that crowd.
Interesting. Katie, what about you?
So our fall market is called Discover ADAC, and that's going to run September 22nd through 24th.
And Cole?
Well, we have Dallas Market next week, beginning on Wednesday, August 19th through 25th. And then we have our Fall Design Week in September 22nd through 24th here at Dallas Market Center. For both markets, obviously, we're emphasizing a lot of health and safety. I know we'll get into that specifically. And as well, I know we'll all talk about the aspect of the physical versus the virtual. I think that we're all trying to offer a little bit of each.
And I do think there is probably some differentiation in each of your markets. So I'd love to kind of, Cole, let's just go backwards around the room. You've kind of alluded to it. What can designers and buyers, you know, from retail stores expect when they come to Dallas Market? And then I'll let you all answer the same question.
Yeah, I'll try to keep it brief. A full overview is on our website. I know IMC has been very mindful as well of making sure we want to keep everybody as safe as possible. The first thing to say is that we have made a lot of efforts to make things as safe as possible. We have a comprehensive plan for health and safety, and that includes everything from social distancing, a mask mandate, temperatures being checked, hand sanitizing stations everywhere, and also a lot of natural design features that we have here in Dallas with wide entries, open hallways, vertical transportation via escalators, ways in which people can be socially distanced while they're here, and that's important to mention. But also, I think it's important to talk for just a second about how it's a choice to come into market, and in Dallas, we're open every day. And so if people want to come in for a show, they're welcome to do that. If they're not comfortable doing that, then waiting a week or two or a month or two is just fine. We're fortunate that next week we'll have 95% of showrooms open. But we're also very sensitive to the fact that some folks might might have come last week, or again, they might wait a month or two to come to Dallas. And so we're all trying to work our way through this as deliberately and sensitively as we can.
Katie, what about you guys?
So, like Cole said, right now, our showrooms and our building is open daily, and all of our showrooms are open and doing business. Now, we might have some showrooms that are open by appointment only, so we're updating that on our website and through social media just to make sure that, you know, if a designer does show up at our building and they want to go into a showroom that is by appointment, they know that in advance and have made that appointment. But they're all, you know, doing business right now. So when it comes to market, all of our events and programming will be online, and we'll host those as webinars. But we have a full 3 robust days from morning to evening, you know, back-to-back presentations. So there's tons for designers and architects and just design enthusiasts to tune into throughout the day. It allows them to pick and choose various events and topics that they want to hear about, just like they would any other market. And then, you know, that week, if designers are in town, then they'll just shop the showrooms like they normally would any other time. But also encouraging, check the website. It's updated daily, just in case there's a showroom that's open by appointment only. Most are not, though. You can still walk in and do business.
And I'm gonna, before I get to you, Karen, I do have a question. So what I hear you saying is that a lot of the presentations and the social aspect of market is shifting to online. It's still there. You're just going to attend it virtually, not in person.
Yes, correct. So all of what you would typically expect to hear, editors speaking to designers, panel presentations, product introductions, that will all be hosted online through webinars. And again, we start early in the morning with the first one and go all the way to the evening. So it's all day long.
And is it possible for you to get CEUs for the ones that were CEU accredited?
We don't do CEUs during our markets. We reserve those for other times throughout the year because our building is open to the public. We want not only designers and architects to come to our events, but design enthusiasts as well. So for that reason, we really just stick to keeping our educational events at other times. We have other business days at ADAC, and those are reserved for CEUs and other times throughout the year.
Good. I just wanted you to talk about that. And Karen, what about you? What's happening right now?
Right now. So, you know, to Cole's point, you know, in terms of the health and safety protocols, we too did a very extensive task force that we put together, cross-departmental. We hired a world-renowned epidemiologist to help us think through all of those protocols. So, you know, as Cole mentioned, we're doing temperature checks, we're doing mandatory mask wearing, social distancing. So there's dots everywhere telling people to stay 6 feet apart, and dots in elevators. And we've actually established max capacity numbers for each individual showroom to even help the showrooms manage the density within their spaces. So based on their square footage, they've been given a max number of allowance in their showroom. So again, just to kind of help them through that process as well. Extensive cleaning. The facilities look great. They're beautiful. They're clean. There's hand sanitizer everywhere. We're handing out PPE kits to everybody when they come in. So if they don't have a mask, they'll get one with some hand sanitizer and a little card with some reminders about our safety protocols. So I feel really good about the actual environment that we're presenting market in, and we've gotten really positive feedback on it so far. And then to Katie's point too, like because we don't want to bring people together in close quarters, all of our programming has been shifted to virtual. So a lot of the same programming that we typically do at a market is still continuing. A lot of it happened prior to market. Some is still happening during market. But we are taking all of that content and bringing it to our audience virtually, so they're not missing out on that rich content that helps drive their buying and discovery process at market.
I'm sure that was challenging to put all of that together virtually. So bravo for turning on a dime on that. So I'm going to ask a more specific question of Ashley, because I have this, let's see, 11 years I went to High Point Market, every market until April. And we didn't get to have an April market, right?
Didn't.
And And I think it's interesting when I think about what you guys are describing with seminars online and then going to market. They've always been something in my mind that when I did my schedule, I was out of the office. I had a week that I was away, and I would do showrooms in the morning, and then I wanted to go to a talk in the afternoon. And then I had these appointments, and then I would fit in a social event. So when I think about how, as a designer, I'm going to schedule myself, layered on how, Ashley, you're having different regions attend on certain dates, how do you then factor in the schedule for the virtual component with your attending a market? Talk about that.
Yeah, well, I think all of us are learning in 2020 certainly how to do things differently. I mean, if there was a theme for the year, I think that's probably what it would be. And market is going to be the same thing. So the product is still going to be here. You're just going to have to access it differently because we're going to have reduced capacity in the showroom. So you want to make sure that you're scheduling your appointments and you're very regimented in terms of where you're going, because you might not be as able to pop in like you want to. You're still going to be able to network when you're connecting with those folks. You just aren't going to be able to do it at the big parties in the evening, you know? So, but you're still going to have that face-to-face in some situations, which is going to be really great and really valuable. And I think that's what everybody's ready to get back to. And then for the education too, you know, like Katie and Karen have said, it's going to be there, but it's going to be virtual. Now for us being in October, we're right now actually planning on a hybrid for the event model. Some of the events right now are planned to be in person. There is the possibility, you know, we aren't until October, so we're a little bit farther out than these summer markets. So if it got to the point where we did need to move those online, we have a plan to do that. But we also, at our market, the way we're built in High Point, we have a 900-seat auditorium right in the center of the market district. So we plan to have some events in there, of course, very spread out, using only about 30% of the capacity of that space. And because some of the showrooms are so large, or single tenant buildings here in High Point, we have some exhibitors who are looking to do some in-person events, but they'll be doing all of the proper safety measures, limiting capacity. They'll also be making them available digitally as well. Anything we have in the theater, we're going to be recording, making it available afterwards. And then we're doing some as well online. So I think it's all a matter of doing it differently, but making sure that the main components that the industry is looking for is still there.
So I have a really big question, and it's not on the list. Talk to me about food, because that's a part, you know, I think Atlanta and Dallas and Las Vegas all have wonderful restaurants and food. And when I go to High Point, some of those are much more limited. And if I'm being extremely honest with you, I depend on certain showrooms to feed me throughout the day so that I can stay on campus and grab lunch and have a drink. What is that going to look like? Are there some restrictions on that at all?
I agree with you. It's a big deal. We do not want hangry people walking around market, and people plan on that. So, you know, they schedule their day based on, I love this lunch, so I'm going to go here and I'm going to eat this, you know, for dinner. And they want to go to the Phillips Collection moonshine mixer and all of that. We do expect some reduced catering within the showrooms. We've had some exhibitors, they say they just don't feel comfortable, so they're going to be cutting it completely. We've had others say that they're completely comfortable with transitioning in it. And so it's going to be single serve, or it's going to be passed, or something along those lines. So we're providing those with the guidelines. There's some training out there as well. And then in anticipation of reduced catering in the showrooms, what we're going to be doing, since Market and High Point does have a lot of outdoor components, we're going to be blanketing the downtown with food trucks. Because it's very easy to social distance there. So you space out in the lines, then we can have some outdoor seating areas that are covered in case it's really bright sunshine or, you know, poor weather along those lines, but they're very open tenting. And then of course it would be outdoor seating, so it can be wiped down very easily and it can be spread out. That's one of the things we're looking at. And then we're even taking in consideration, when you are choosing what restaurant you want to go to in High Point, Greensboro, Winston-Salem, wherever you're going to be going, there's actually a statewide initiative that's called Count on Me NC. And what it's doing is providing training that's COVID specific for local businesses, and mostly for hotels and restaurants. So we're encouraging all of those restaurants in the local area to get this Count on Me NC training, so they're prepared to be safe for when our guests come to visit them. And so you should go to that website, find the restaurants that have had that training and are prioritizing your safety, and make sure you're visiting them when you're picking where you're going to go for dinner that night.
That's very interesting. I like that. I was curious how you were. I love the food trucks, by the way.
Yeah.
They're amazing. And you've had some really great additions. You've added more and more over the years. So I really love that. Is anyone else doing anything differently as it relates to food and entertaining your guests, if you will? Buyers, designers?
Yeah, I think it's kind of the same as Ashley was saying. There's different CDC guidelines for food service, obviously during COVID. So, just things like open buffets aren't really an option. So food just has to be prepackaged. It doesn't mean showrooms can't serve food and drinks. It just has to be served in a slightly different way to make sure that it's safe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. Here in Dallas, we're going to have a lot of grab and go, prepackaged, working with vendors, our food service provider, but also outside vendors to be able to offer new options and more interesting options. I mean, I heard just last week, we're going to have a sushi option, grab and go for the first time, or wraps. I mean, things that, don't call for people to sit and leisurely have a meal as much as they can grab and go. I think we're all anticipating that the trips to market, frankly, will be more efficient. And people will want to, they won't want to get hangry, but they do want to keep going and need fuel for that. So whether it's the Starbucks that is not having the tables available but still serving, whether it's the food service, which is grab and go but still serving, or new options are available. And the same thing is true in the showrooms, doing hospitalities in a little bit of a new manner, because people will be efficiently using their time while they're traveling to the marketplaces in order to see what they need to see and to be on their way.
And at ADAC, since all of our events will be online, we had best examples, another event that we typically do every year that's called To Live and Dine, and designers design these beautiful tablescapes, and we bring in chefs from various restaurants throughout Atlanta, and we sell tickets to it. We sit down at the tables and we're served food. Well, obviously that couldn't happen this year, but we didn't want to cancel the event because it's one of our signature events, and everyone is excited about it every year. So this year we just pivoted. We're still doing all the tablescapes and all the PR around it, and then we've scheduled it's by appointment only, very targeted groups that we have that are coming in, social media, influencers, bloggers, and then magazines, some realtors at various times by appointment, where they can come in and view all the tablescapes. So still got to do the event, just in a new way this year.
So I'm curious, have you rented any showroom space to people making masks? Because that seems to be a new category for us all. What are you seeing out there in some of the showrooms? Is this a new category of sales?
Well, it sure is. It certainly, I know Karen is aware of that in their properties, and we share a lot of the same vendors between our properties. But, initially, puzzles, masks, games, hand sanitizer, health and wellness. But let me step back and just talk about how, masks are here to stay as a fashion statement, and they are part of our lives now, and available in the showrooms during the shows for stores to order. But the whole overarching aesthetic of wellness and health is something that I think a lot of us have been thinking about and addressing for many months. I think back to early March when ASID, issued their State of the Industry survey for 2020. And one of the first things they called out, and this is right at the beginning of COVID, without any recognition of what we were facing, they called out that wellness is a new frontier for design. And so whether it's a simple task as masks and hand sanitizer, or if it's more of a larger design element like wellness in the home and wellness as a category for design, I think that's something that people's attention are focused on and will be focused on for some time, Denise.
So I'm talking to each of you about market in general, and I'm talking about attending markets with buildings or multiple showrooms. But I'm curious, if a designer doesn't choose to attend market, how are they going to attend market virtually? Is that by showroom, on a showroom by showroom basis, or is this something that you're working with your manufacturers and showroom owners to develop together? Talk to me more about that.
I guess I'll start. So, so we've thought a lot about this. Obviously, we had to think about it really quickly, right? But we also already had plans in place to create a more omni-channel experience for our customers. We know that buyers buy at market. We know markets are very important and continue to be very important, but we also recognize that people are buying in other ways. They're buying through reps on the road, they're buying online, and that's not going to change. And so we actually, in January, we launched an initiative called IMCDI to create an omni-channel platform for our buyers and sellers. So it creates a seamless experience of discovery and purchasing at market and carries right through to reps on the road and then right through to a B2B e-commerce platform. So it's really channel agnostic. It allows a customer to purchase anywhere, any way they want to from the brands that they're purchasing from. And it's also that virtual content component that we've been talking about too. Right? It's not just about purchasing, but still delivering the trend information, the product information, what's hot, what's selling, you know, what's at this point, what's in stock is a big question, right? Like some people need product right away. So what is ready to ship? So things like that. So we recognize that purchasing is going to happen in all different ways, and we want to do whatever we can to facilitate that when and wherever our customers need it.
That's great. Does anyone else have anything special you're doing?
Well, for us at ADAC, what we learned very, very quickly is that design did not stop during certainly not during the shutdown and no part of COVID. In fact, if anything, more people have realized that they were at home in those four walls and they wanted to change. So, you know, designers have picked up new projects and they certainly couldn't stop working. So we were really impressed from the very beginning how quickly the brands pivoted and started doing, you know, product introductions through webinars, but then also maybe, you know, a sales rep might do a Zoom to introduce new products. We did a designer roundtable recently and heard something really interesting that more and more of the sales reps and brands are using their social media. And through that, designers are learning about something new, some new line or something that they didn't know about before that they're then going in and getting the sample or tear sheet or more information about that. So we've just been really impressed with the fact that we could shift to some of that. That does not take away from the in-showroom experience. When designers are buying at the price point that they're buying, they have to be in the showroom to, you know, see the fabric in person, to sit on the sofa. So none of that has changed. It's just introduced new ways of introducing the product.
For High Point, we one thing that we've done for fall market specifically is we did adapt that hybrid model for our online event calendar. So if somebody wanted to do a scheduled virtual tour that's going to allow the trade to tune in at that time, then that's scheduled like an event. They're able to add that onto the event calendar. It's not just an in-person event. So some folks who don't feel comfortable coming this fall will still be able to access not only events, but if they're doing it as a virtual tour or something like that. We were seeing that exhibitors are bringing in that virtual element very differently. Some want to do it event-based like that, so we have ways for them to do that. Others are just doing it like scheduling virtual appointments. If you're not going to be coming to do an in-person appointment, then they will schedule a virtual appointment with you where their staff is actually in the showroom, but you can walk through. And that is being handled on an individual basis with the showroom because it's just very different. That's one person's model. The other people that maybe they're not doing virtual appointments while the staff is here, but they might be bringing a video team in and they're creating a video and they might be putting that out. That's something that either of those elements, they can certainly be updating their exhibitor profile and listing. We're encouraging them to put it out there. How are you doing that? They should be listing that in the description of their profiles. And then of course, we're telling them that we're here to support them. So if they're going out and mentioning that we want to help them get that word out.
Talk about your HP Market app. I have used that in the past to schedule my market or find showrooms. Is there going to be more information loaded up there? Talk about that.
Yeah, for anybody who develops apps knows that any major change like that takes time and a lot of money. So we are not going to be doing a lot of major changes before fall market with the app. It's really great for accessing exhibitor profiles. So if they are changing that content, like in the description of their profile, or you can see their events, that's all in the app there. But there won't be any major changes there through the app. If you're scheduling, which of course we want you scheduling your appointments, you can go in the app, and once you've added your groups or where you're going to stop to the My Market list, of course you can put that in your chronological order, trying to help you keep that straight. But you want to be scheduling the appointment directly with the exhibitor and with your contact there.
Got it. Great. Thank you. What were you going to say, Cole?
Well, I'm just going to mention really quickly about the variety of channels available to people. And we certainly have seen that in the last several years, but it really has accelerated during the pandemic. My wife works in real estate, and it was amazing to me that just in the last few months, the amount of business that she's been able to conduct virtually by using an iPhone, walking through even high-end lease properties or high-end properties in the Dallas area and giving tours one-on-one. The same thing is happening in showrooms. The same thing is happening from designers. You know this, Denise, of being able to communicate with clients very quickly and efficiently using the tools in your hand. But as a marketplace and a market center, I think there's just so many different platforms available to us in the individual showroom level, what they've built out themselves, what we already have in our hands and what we're using, but also those platforms that we continue to develop, whether it's the app or whether it is social media, including for a lot of us, it's a ton more video content, but not overload. And I think one of those things, as we communicate here via Zoom, I think a lot of us have Zoom, so much Zoom taking place these days that we have to be mindful about delivering content that truly matters and efficiency of content. When you have so many platforms available for ordering product, when you have so many platforms available for distributing information, you have to manage your expectations on what it can do for you and what the ROI is going to be on webinars, seminars, platforms for e-commerce, showroom tools, all of that. And I think in a lot of ways, we're really at the beginning of the new age of the platforms that are available. And how we can best channel those is going to play out very quickly, as we've all spent time ordering our groceries on our phones in the last several months. But the same is true, I think, for the design community, to quickly realize, just as retailers have recently, to quickly realize the power of Instagram as not merely a place to post pretty pictures, but also to get commerce done, to harness its capability for live events and for posts that truly drive a business and a brand via these channels.
That's great. I have a question here that I think I know the answer to, but I want to ask. Will markets move from showing twice a year to once a year?
Absolutely not for us.
No, I mean, if anything, I would say, not that we're adding markets, but the frequency of buying has only increased over time, right? So historically, retailers, for example, bought twice a year to fill their stores. Well, they're not even doing that anymore. And certainly designers who are buying by project and immediate need, it wouldn't make sense to go down to once a year. No, I mean, I can speak for us. We're keeping our twice a year schedule in general. We do have other sort of mini markets that we do in between those major markets in Atlanta in particular. And then we have parts of our business that are open daily. So like ADAC, America's Mart has several floors that are open daily again. So we just want to be there when our customers need us.
If you think about how much, when brands are introducing new product, they're doing that throughout the year. And so it's really important that we have those dedicated markets each year to be able to tell those stories and introduce that new product. So a designer has, okay, those 3 days I know I need to go to ADAC because I'm going to see so much new. So that definitely has to happen. Designers need the new for the new projects.
Right. So I don't know how many of you follow fashion other than Cole, because there's so much fashion at Dallas Market Center in addition to home furnishings, but we've seen with the inability to have in-person shows, a lot of the shows going online. We've seen, fashion has been showing all the runway shows online for a long time. Do you ever sense that there might be an online runway opportunity for our industry in the future, where there is a market and there is a buying opportunity, but there's also a marketing component to launch product online before you launch it in person?
I'll say, Denise, that I do hope that one thing that comes out of this scenario and what we're all learning is the addition of technology tools. I think we've already seen that happening, and there's some huge benefits to that. But I think that this is a face-to-face industry, and just like you are, you know, when you're talking to your clients, they're trusting you with the products that you're sourcing. And so it's important that you've seen it, that you understand its scale, that you know it sits comfortably, that you understand the wood grain and how it looks. And I don't think that the technology is ever going to replace some of those components. So I see it remaining in person. And I think that that's going to be one of the mixes, that people are going to start. In-person elements are going to bring in more digital tools. And then in the in-between times, there's going to be some extra tools that come in to support that.
Does everyone else?
Segments, I was just going to say, there are certainly segments, and you identified fashion as one that has utilized online very effectively. The seasonality of fashion is such, and it changes so quickly, that there's an opportunity to launch a collection, have it available, and then 6 weeks later, it's on to the next. And I think for home furnishings, there's a little bit of a different timeline, but I also think there's something to learn from fashion, or to learn from other consumer segments, whether it's electronics or what have you, about the ability to leverage online for debuts, for a launch of a collection, to build excitement around that, get people interested in it, and then to drive people in to take a look, take a seat, take a tour of something, to see that in person. The same thing is true in fashion, by the way. Online fashion shows are fantastic, but at the end of the day, I think for whether it's home fashion or apparel and accessories, your buyer wants to touch the fabric, feel, look at the quality, and build relationships in person in order to feel comfortable with a business relationship. But I think all of us understand that the digital component can do a much better job for home furnishings of learning from the other categories to build excitement, build awareness, and build a lot of buzz, and not wait necessarily for one moment, a market, in order for things to debut.
I agree. Yeah, I agree with Cole on that.
Yeah, and I do, and I have to give a shout out to Chaddock. They did a Mark Sykes launch because he was scheduled to launch in April when there wasn't a market. And they did an online launch that I thought was so incredibly well done, that reminded me of fashion. I think probably a lot of that comes from the fact that Mark has a background in fashion. And I think it was an exciting moment for our industry to share that product with us. And Mark was there specifically talking about how he had designed each piece. And I think you got such insight into the mind behind the creation that I thought it was really well done. And I hope that it's the beginning of more of that.
Yeah, just one more final thought on that is that, you know, why wait for a market necessarily when there's space available and time available in people's lives to carve out a moment in March or a moment in August or whenever that might be, in order to create a fantastic event with a lot more attention paid to it, versus with your constituents who are and customers who are interested in that. Whereas I think oftentimes market can be so crowded and can be so full of new information and must see and must do that a lot of the enthusiasm and buzz can dissipate really quickly.
Well, and I think that it goes back to me asking the question about markets potentially moving to once a year. I would love an opportunity to see markets be more than twice a year in certain markets where there are those special launches via the internet, where we get to experience things and be inspired. More than anything, being trapped at home as a creative and as a designer and still needing to be creative, and we need that inspiration. We need those opportunities. And I think that that's probably one of the things that I have missed the most, is that the well is getting a little dry. And how are we going to get that? What is that going to look like for us in the future? So Thank you for, I love that your insight gives us all some hope, honestly. I have a question about local attendance or regional attendance. Do you anticipate that you're going to see more of your local or regional people attending market than you have in the past due to what travel looks like now? Because, you know, people who can easily drive to the market, do you think more of them are going to be attending as opposed to what you've seen in the past?
Well, for ADAC, ours is we're a regional market anyways. I mean, we service a 10-state region. So designers are driving in from Nashville and Charleston and Charlotte all the time, just on a daily basis. So we definitely see that during markets. But even right now, we're hearing from the showrooms that the designers are driving in from the cities because they have to be in the showroom to see the fabric and touch and feel. I think for market that week, the one difference that will be great is we may even have a larger reach because all of our programming will be virtual. So maybe somebody who wasn't going to be able to make the trip, you know, that particular week at market to ADAC will be able to still participate in, you know, in the programming, and maybe they'll be introduced to a line they've never, you know, actually delved into before, or see a new product that they then build a relationship with, you know, with a new vendor. So it's, you know, it's both opportunity and I think just the fact that we're lucky that we already have a drive-in market region.
What about High Point?
I think the comfort level of people with traveling right now is such a personal decision that for us, we're seeing it's still a mixed bag. We talked to our concierge at Travel Quest. They say that they're still booking flights, but they also talk to some people who are comfortable coming, but not getting on a flight, and they're within drive-in range. So as long as they're coming, we're fine with either, but we know that there are some folks from the West Coast that are still coming, and they're gonna have to hop on a flight to do that. I think we can say with certainty, just because of the regulations right now, international traffic will definitely be down, greatly diminished. But beyond that, we're still seeing the domestic traffic across the board, which is really encouraging. But yeah, of course, you're going to see that. I mean, even in the travel industry right now, they're going to see that the locations which you can access from drive-in are certainly being more populated than when you have to get on a plane.
So parking may be something that you're looking at in more detail.
Yeah, our business is certainly regional for design. It has always been the case. I will say that once we reopened our doors, we are now seeing about 75% of the traffic we saw pre-pandemic week by week, which is, you know, quite encouraging. We have some showrooms doing appointments, but the majority of our design showrooms are open. But by and large, it remains a regional business. And I think that's by purpose and by design. If you are in Shreveport or Tulsa or Houston or Santa Fe, New Mexico, or even Waco, Texas, you can make it a quick trip to Dallas in order to fulfill your needs because it's on a project basis. It's more of a time commitment to travel a larger distance in order to turn around for projects. I will say that regionally something we saw about 10 years ago or so, and I think we might see again, is speaking of that regional business, is more people going into business, more people who are having an opportunity now to rethink, do I want to go into business for the first time as a designer? And Denise is like, oh my gosh, more competition. But we saw that in 2008, 2010 is actually an increase in the number of people who went into the design business and decided to strike out. I don't have any evidence for that yet, but I think we'll see that as people figure out, like, hey, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do something I've wanted to do, which is get into the design business. And I have a place to go, a partner nearby that can help me with getting accredited, doing my CEOs, establishing relationship with vendors, networking. I mean, we're fortunate to have huge chapters for ASID, IDS, and others in this region, which is tremendously supportive. And I think it's that networking and support, even on a regional basis, which can be very helpful.
That's great. I will tell you, as a designer and having been in business through right after 9/11 when I started my firm and through the recession, we are busier now than we have ever been. We're hiring. So our business is definitely off the charts right now. To Katie's earlier statement when we first started. And I think probably one of the bigger challenges for me as a designer is scheduling. And I think that having to find the time for the education for those types of things during markets or having an opportunity to learn. I'm glad to hear that even though they may not be in person, they're still out there, because that's probably one of the more gratifying parts about market, in addition to the socialization, is that I get to learn, you know. So I'm curious, how will showroom staging change to avoid the crowding and promote distancing? What are you seeing? Because Karen,
Karen can speak to that for sure. And I don't know if people know that IMC also owns ADAC, that's our parent company. So the protocols, you know, that Karen will speak to are all implemented at
on the
ADAC.
side of my screen, and I'm like, and Karen, tell me how that's going to work.
No, so I'll tell you, like what we're seeing here this week, you can definitely see some showrooms that have sort of opened up their merchandising a little bit more, right? Like wider aisles, a little less product in the showroom to allow for that social distancing. I think the other change that I'm seeing is we have a lot of showrooms that might have multiple entrance points, and they've actually closed off all of those points except one. Again, so that they can just monitor who's coming and going from the showroom a little bit better. But other than that, I mean, it really looks very similar. Many of the showrooms obviously have receptionists, things like that at the entrance, where they can help monitor how many people are in the showroom. It's been, frankly, we've done 3 markets here, 2 apparel, and now the gift and home market in the last month and a half. And the feedback is it's been very appointment based. People are making appointments and they're showing up for their appointments, which is unusual. A lot of times people make them and, you know, don't make it to the appointment, but it has been much more scheduled. And so I think those little tweaks to the formats of a little bit more open, maybe narrowing or limiting the number of entrances to some of the larger showrooms, is just giving them that level of comfort that they can manage a little bit better the number of people that are in each showroom.
I'm curious, if I have an appointment, is it a 30-minute appointment? Is it an hour appointment? Am I going to kind of get kicked out once my time slot's up? Or what if I get there and the showroom's at max capacity? Do I have to wait outside? Like, what's that going to be like?
So I think it's going to be case by case with the showrooms, right? Everybody's going to schedule those a little differently. But we are, you know, I would say scheduling is a good thing, because there is the possibility that you arrive at a showroom and it's already at max capacity, and so you would have to wait. And so that's where I think that scheduling can be really important to make sure you're maximizing your time at market. So yeah, I think it's really just working with your representative or point of contact at each of those showrooms to get the time that you need while you're there.
And Karen spoke earlier, sorry.
Yeah,
Karen spoke earlier about the protocols that across all of IMC, all of our campuses that we've put in place. And, you know, with the Together Safely website as well, we just really made it very clear to all of our showrooms, you know, here are the protocols we expect you to follow. And at ADAC, they've done an excellent job. And I've noticed that many of the brands have their own protocols in place. Like when you go into a fabric or a wallpaper showroom, they require you to have gloves on. So everybody is being as careful as they possibly can to make sure that those coming in to purchase feel comfortable and feel like it's as safe as possible. And they kind of actually, a lot of the designers are enjoying the one-on-one, you know, attention as well. So
yeah,
I would think that would be great. So, well, I've got one more question, and then we're going to open it up for Q&A. I see some questions popping up now. If you have a question that you would like to ask the panel, Q&A is open at the bottom of your screen. We would love to have some of those questions come our way. I have a few that I've asked and peppered in here and there, but I have one more question. So how do you think the next 12 to 18 months we're going to see the positive benefits of this time? You've spoken a little bit about online components, but I think that we as an industry have an amazing opportunity right now to take this time, learn from it, and really become even better at what we do. I mentioned, you know, the Chaddock launch previously. What have you seen that is probably the most exciting thing for you? And one answer may answer the same for all of you, but I'd love to hear from you what you're hopeful about right now.
Well, I'll start in on just one element of things, and that is that, you know, I think there's a lot of room for good news these days, and a lot of room for looking at things a bit of the glass half full as opposed to half empty. And I have to remind myself to do that. And one of the ways I do that is to flip around a negative narrative that I've heard around our business or businesses by and large. And one of those narratives is that, you know, things aren't going well in X industry because, you know, it's accelerating the inevitable, that companies were getting behind or companies were doing X, Y, and Z. And so this is just accelerating the inevitable, this bad news that might be out in certain industries. Well, let's look at it on the flip side, in the glass half full. It's accelerating the inevitable that the design community is leveraging social media like never before. It's accelerating the inevitable that there are new organizational tools and planning tools that the design community can use to help their business. It's accelerating the inevitable that there are online components and virtual showrooms and ways in which we're having to really work fast and furious and quickly, again, accelerating to, and to some degree, catch up. In other words, to stay ahead in order to serve the needs of people. So, you know, my answer to that is, and sort of a positive example is, and I've seen it time and time again with showrooms, that yeah, they're having to accelerate the inevitable of getting in gear, getting up to speed, and helping to lead the way in new ways to reach customers, new ways to inspire, and at the same time be very efficient with that, because it is a new day, and you're going to have a limited attention span of people, given all of the multiplicity of content that's out there, the time drain, all of that. So what are you going to do to get people's attention to deliver content that matters, products that inspire, and tools that will help people be successful? We cannot do things the way we were doing them before and rest on our laurels, especially now. We really have to recognize this as an opportunity.
Yeah.
I'm excited about this. You know, we sort of expected that this might happen. You mentioned earlier just going through the tragedy of 9/11 and what came of that. And I think something similar that will come out of this and we're hearing is this nesting phase that's happening right now with people really, you know, not wanting to travel or certainly can't travel overseas. They're limited in what they can do. So they're going to invest in their own homes and create the experience within their own homes. So I'm excited about that next phase of nesting.
It's definitely happening here. I will tell you we're definitely updating the homes that our clients are living in. Anybody else before I go to the question and answer section? Okay, so this is the first question comes from press. Is press scheduling Zoom and virtual showroom tours, or are they physically attending? Because that's a whole other component of how we learn about things that are new in market. We read about them in print publications. Talk about that.
I know for High Point, it's going to be mixed across the board. Some outlets have travel bans, and it's unclear for us whether or not those will still be in place for October. We know for sure some folks that, especially journalists that live here locally, will be attending, and editors as well. So some are scheduling in-person appointments, and then some are going to be connecting virtually with the people that they need to connect with. Some are coming, but maybe not the full team. And so they're sending somebody who can drive in or somebody along those lines. So it's really going to be mixed, but the good news is they still need the stories. They still want to get the content out there. There's still going to be the access that you're going to be looking for the coverage.
Okay, this question is for you, Ashley.
Okay.
Talk about housing during the 9-day format during High Point Market. Will home rentals be at previous levels since there's an extension of time?
Yeah, you want to talk about the silver lining coming out of all this is we're very thankful that this has caused the hotel industry to have a lot of flexibility. And so we're seeing that as a silver lining here in High Point. In terms of availability for hotels, we do see that that's out there right now. The rates are great. The hotels want to fill up those rooms, so they have very favorable rates. And then they're also being very flexible with their policies, where they may have charged, you had like 30-day out cancellation policies, or in opportunities they weren't very flexible on moving your dates. Now you can move your dates up to 48 hours in advance in some parts of or some different hotels. In terms of private home rentals, we have Airbnb is there, and then we have 3 different companies on our website as well. And when we talk to them, they say the homeowners are still interested. They're putting the safety protocols in place that the CDC and the state health department is recommending, and they're open and willing to accept market guests. So that option's out there as well if you're not comfortable with hotels.
Which brings up another question about transportation at markets on shuttles. And before we went live with you guys, Katie was talking about the shuttle that currently runs between Atlanta Market and ADAC. Talk about that and what looks different there.
So we just did a much larger shuttle this time, so that we could allow for social distancing on the shuttle. So the shuttle runs in between our 2 properties, and you are required to wear a mask on the shuttle. There are certain seats designated that you're allowed to sit in, and then there's cleaning throughout on the shuttle itself. So today was the first day, and it went really, really successfully. And we saw people lined up, socially distanced apart, ready to get on.
Right, and I'm assuming High Point will follow suit with how many people are allowed on shuttles and cleaning, etc.
Yes, we're going to be having all the services that you would expect. Again, they just might look a little differently. So just like Katie said, the shuttles will be operating at reduced capacity. Face coverings will be required. We're even scheduling additional vehicles so that we can take a few out of commission and clean them thoroughly, do the fogging and such. We have a sanitation task force that will be going around all of Market, and that part of that will be getting onto the shuttles to wipe things down. So there will be seats marked where you can sit, and making sure that people are monitoring how many are on the shuttle. We always have the bus host, so that's not a problem. And then you might see, whereas certainly on a line you would normally see a big shuttle, this time for the downtown area, we might instead transition to that to more smaller vehicles, so we can do single groups or single rider vehicle options as opposed to larger shuttles, just to make sure that people feel comfortable utilizing it. For the airport shuttles specifically, we've always have it set up where you don't require a reservation for PTI when you're flying into Greensboro, but Charlotte and Raleigh, you do require a reservation, and that they're going to be a little bit stricter about that this time. They're only going to be sending the amount of shuttles that we have for the reservation. So make sure that you make that in advance if you're flying into Charlotte or Raleigh.
And I am hoping that there are going to be way more pedicabs so that there is outdoor fresh air riding around with these guys. Love those. So that's my vote. Thank you very much. Okay, here's another question. Are you still going to have temporary exhibit spaces, or is it all showrooms?
I can take that easily in Dallas just because we have a market next week. I'll step up and say that we will have temps. We view that as critically important, but also mindfully, socially distanced and planned. Across all of our markets in August, we'll have about 450 temps, but that includes apparel and accessories as well as gift and home. And the participation is going to be very good in Dallas for the temps. In addition to permanent showrooms, about 95% of those will be open. I think, however, as we look forward to the fall and to additional events and look forward to January, we're always going to be looking at what's working well, what we can adapt. And the most important thing for us in Dallas is to present unique products, one of a kind, things that are discovery zones. And we think that the temps are an important part of that experience to have for buyers. So we're going to go forward with it, and we'll see how it goes.
That's great. Thank you.
And so for us, Denise, just for, we made the decision this summer to suspend our temporary exhibits in Atlanta. Those will come back starting in October with our apparel market. And then we will have temporaries for High Point in October. And then also for our January market, we will be back with our temporary display there as well.
Great. Anyone else? Okay, I've got one more question, and it's related to percentages of registration for vendors and attendees. People are curious, you know, how many people have registered? Who all's coming? Who's not showing? I'm sure it's far too early for some of you to answer those questions, but that question is always out there. You can answer it if you choose, but I wanted to let you know it's one of the questions.
So I'll tell you, you know, in terms of the vendors that are showing, we've added a filter to both the Atlanta market and the Las Vegas market website. So buyers, designers can go onto our exhibitor directory and see who's going to be physically open for our summer markets, and which showrooms will just be displaying online. So it's a really good tool. So feel free to use that. Go look and see who's open. It's a, you know, it's a significant portion, but you know, I think it was Ashley who mentioned it earlier. You know, for some, it's a personal decision for many in terms of whether they feel comfortable coming, and we respect that and appreciate that. So we're there, we're open. We'd love to have as many showrooms open as possible, but also understand that some just may not be comfortable right now.
So I think I've got one more question before we say goodbye to everyone, and it speaks specifically to, like, for example, the With It breakfast, these big breakfasts, or the Style Spotter, you know, live types of events. Will those things be happening at market in the fall, or markets in the fall?
So for us, things like specifically Style Spotters Live, we have moved it. It's not going to be a breakfast anymore, and it's not going to be in the ballroom because tables of, you know, rounds of 8 just simply wouldn't work. But because we do have the 900-seat auditorium, we plan to do Style Spotters Live, but recognizing that that might not be occurring in the period that you're attending, or it might not, that you might have made the choice not to attend market this time. We still want to make it available digitally as well. So we're going to do Style Spotters Live in person, and then we're going to actually do a Style Spotters Live webinar afterwards. And for other events that are happening in person, like our keynote series or our ASID series, we're going to be recording those and making those available afterwards. So we always have, if we have the in-person event, we are making the commitment to also have it available digitally afterwards.
That's wonderful. Well, I just want to say we're out of time. Thank you guys so much. It has been so lovely to speak with each of you. I really appreciate your time. I think everyone's excited about when this time is past, we can all actually be together again. And we are looking forward to that. So thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. Thanks, everybody.
Collective for putting this together.
Bye.
Thanks, Tom.